So today's one is how to drive more traffic to your website with me, Rich from QBD. Again, thank you all for coming along and attending. Now, I do realise with this actually that it's quite a big thing to say. When I was putting these slides together earlier in the week, I was like, whoa, that's kind of like the holy grail of everything that you're trying to do with your website is drive more traffic to it. So it is quite a big topic area, and we won't obviously be able to cover it all today. We'll kind of go through very broadly some of the different things that we see, but some of those areas that are basically too big to cover in one go, we will be doing other like separate sessions on those to be able to go into it. One of the aims of all these how-to sessions was to pick one particular area of digital marketing and focus on that to give you some things to really take away. And then if there's other things you want us to cover, let us know, because then we can talk about those as well. So we're just trying to give you kind of like basic things as we go along here. So in terms of driving traffic to your website, there's three kind of ways really that for purposes of this really, that we see the three different ways that you can drive traffic to your website. So the first one is organic traffic, it's referred to. So that would be Google. So people typing something into Google and your website coming up in that search somewhere, and then them visiting your website because of that. So they might not necessarily have heard of you before, know that you exist as a business, but the things that they're typing into Google then presents your website as one of the options that they might be interested in. So that's the first way. That's organic traffic. The second would be through paid ads. So you can drive traffic to your website by running Google ads, where you pay to be at the top of Google, or through social media ads, which is something that we specialize in, where you're using Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, whatever it might be, to grab people's attention, target very specific audiences, and drive them to your website. So that's another one of the main ways. And the third way, although I do take the point, there is like email marketing as well you could do with this. But one that we'll focus a lot on today is around social media and how you can use social media to drive people to your website. And that's the one we'll be focusing on more today, because out of the three, and I'll explain more about the other two in a minute, that's the one that you can probably influence yourself and go away from today's session and do something about this week without having to kind of spend any or too much money on, whereas the others is a bit of a different game really, to be honest. So the first one, organic traffic, it is by far the best one to try and get. Long term, certainly it's the best one to do, but the problem with it is it can take time. So you have to think about how your website looks, performs, the structure of it, the content that's on it, the search terms that you want to be found for, all those sorts of things. And then with those search terms that you want to be found for, you kind of need to do a feasibility study to see how realistic it's going to be to rank for some of those search terms. You can localize it, so you can kind of put a geographical kind of fence around it. So you are able to kind of narrow it down a bit like that. But for example, there's clients of ours that we've helped, and so one of them does vehicle leasing, and they did come to us and say, we're interested in trying to get higher on Google, try and get onto page one of Google for vehicle leasing in the UK. They haven't got a chance, to be honest, because they're just not big enough. There's too many big national vehicle leasing companies out there with huge websites that spend huge amounts of money, and so it's just, they haven't got the guns for the fight, basically. We took them down the route of paid ads, Facebook ads that work very well for them, actually. So those are the sorts of things to bear in mind when you think about the organic traffic. We will go into this in more detail in sessions to come, in these how-to sessions. But long-term, organic is the better way to go, because although there is a cost up front to kind of getting your website right and doing that research and getting the right keywords and terminology on your website, once it's done, you do have to top it up a bit, but overall it is then kind of working for you. So that is the best one to look at long term. Just a quick little plug already, if I may. So again, just to remind you, so next week's session will be covering some of those issues. So Liam will take you through, how to get a bit higher on Google, those sorts of things you should be looking at. Again, the details for how to book onto that will be in the email we send out tomorrow, but it's very similar to how you booked on to today's course, to be honest. In terms of paid ads are great. I do lots of them. I think they're really good ways to advertise to your target audiences very cost effectively. However, it is a bit like a money tap, and by that I mean that we've seen this where clients of ours that do Google ads, they spend a lot of money, they do very well with Google ads, but the minute they turn the Google ads off, literally the phone stops ringing. Well, not directly, the traffic to the website drops, orders from the website stop. And it would be the same if you were doing any social media ads. They can be great, very, very effective way to drive people to your website. But as soon as you stop paying for it, you stop getting it. And that's why that's different with organic traffic, is because you can pay for it. And then even once you've kind of stopped paying for the SEO of your website, the search engine optimization, you can still reap the benefits of that. Whereas the paid ads is slightly different. What we tend to work with people on that is that we try and kind of do 2 or 3 of these different options in how to drive traffic to your website, because we would say to you, okay, organically, we can certainly try and get your website ranking higher in Google, but it might take us 2 or 3 months, to be honest, to do that work and get it all right and keep testing it. So if you're looking for results quicker than that, the way to go initially would be through paid ads. So for the first 2 or 3 months, let's do some paid ads on Facebook, for example, whilst we're getting your SEO in order. So that's the type of thing that you look at. You kind of have a hybrid of the two of them. To give you a rough idea on the paid ads at the moment, usually speaking, a kind of industry-wide kind of stats and expectations. If you were to spend £100 on a Facebook ad, for example, you would expect to reach probably between 8,000 and 12,000 people. Now, these can be very targeted. I will be doing how-to sessions on this as well, but it's a very, very targeted way of reaching your audiences. So £100, you'll get 8,000 to 12,000 people viewing that ad. And usually we see probably between 250 to 350 people clicking that ad. So for £100, you can get about 300 people visiting your website. Now, because of lockdown and people are spending more time online because of lockdown, we've actually seen in those numbers of almost doubled. So for the same £100 within this last kind of 2 months, you probably reach about 15,000 people and get probably between 500 and 700 visits to your website. I think that's just a reflection of people spending more time online. So just to give you an idea of that those are the kind of numbers that you could look at for that kind of money. But like I said, if you stop that ad immediately, that traffic would stop straight away. So it is a very effective way, but you've kind of got to commit to keep doing it. So those are the first 2, and I just wanted to kind of gloss over them really deliberately, so because I'm sure you'll all appreciate we could spend a lot of time going through each aspect of that, and we will in other sessions, but we just wanted to give a bit of an overview today so you can start to think about, okay, what's my strategy going to be for driving traffic to my website? So you've kind of got a little bit of an idea of what you should be doing. But the ones I wanted to share with you more is around the social media aspect, because like I said, these are things you'll be able to action, and things you'll probably realize when I start showing some of the examples that I've got, that you'll realize kind of what you can do and maybe what other people have been doing. So on the whole, obviously, when you're posting on social media, you would be sharing the link in a post on social media, and the mistakes that I think, or the things that I see that don't help driving traffic to websites from social media, is people don't highlight the link, and I will explain that in a minute. And also, if they are sharing their links on social media, they don't give any consideration to the link previews as well. So I am going to share some examples. What I was really conscious to do with this one was I didn't want to share too many examples when I was basically throwing stones at anyone or kind of having a dig at any of their social media. So I've really tried hard not to find like any that would kind of be offended, or things that, trying to find people that are basically not in this area at all or not necessarily relevant. So the first one, this is a post that I saw on Twitter. It's for a social media company, actually, who are based in India. But I was looking through, and this is a big example. I see a lot of this, where you're not highlighting the link. So I see this a lot with posts. Now, this post hasn't included an image, which they probably should have done as well. But even if they had or they hadn't, you can see that they've tweeted something. They've put a little bit of information about, social media worldwide and how they can help you with their growth services. And then they just bung the link in at the bottom, basically. They haven't highlighted it in any way. They haven't said like, click here to learn more or any of that sort of stuff. They've just stuck the link in at the bottom. And I think this is the thing that I see most with people when they're posting links on social media. They'll write what they want to write, and then just at the bottom as a kind of footnote, they just put the link, and there's no explanation as to what that link is. Sometimes with these social media channels, they will shorten the link. So they do that on LinkedIn. And I know that's a concern for some people, is that if it's a shortened link and it just says like linked.in/AB3725 or something, that link could be taking you anywhere. So there is sometimes that little bit of security issue that you probably want to leave your proper link in so they can see that it is going to be taking them to a website that they know and recognize. But as I said, a lot of the time people will write what they want to write. They'll put their link in without any kind of description or highlighting it. And usually it comes right at the bottom of the post. Now, Twitter's a bit different because it does always show you the whole of the tweet. But if you think about things like on LinkedIn and on Facebook, if you go over probably about 3 or 4 lines on either of those platforms, the rest of that post goes into read more, where you have to click the little button to read more. And if your link is one not highlighted or kind of pointed out, so it's just got the URL, and it's also hidden behind that read more, you're relying on that individual to click the read more, which I'm always a bit wary of, that people wouldn't necessarily do that. And even if they did do that, like this example that I'm showing, you just have got a link which has got no real reference. I mean, it's obviously in reference to what they've posted. I did click the link and it is, but they could have just highlighted it a bit better. An example of how I think it could go out. Now I'm showing you, it's not just because they mentioned me, but it's because one that I saw yesterday. I was like, oh, that's a good example of this. So they have included an image which works. They've tagged people in it to try and increase, you know, the people sharing this post. But the fact they've just put sign up, and then there's the link for the Eventbrite page where you can sign up to that course. You compare that to the one we showed previously, and already that's slightly different. People sometimes, I do it when I'm managing people's social medias. I may even nowadays use a little emoji sign because those work. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, it's become a lot more acceptable to use emojis in your business posts. You don't have to use all the kind of cryy, facey, funny ones, but just like an arrow or the finger pointing towards the link, that sort of thing can look quite neat. And again, it just highlights the fact that it's the link, rather than just putting the link in without the sign up colon. You know, that just brings your attention to it a little bit more. And also, it's eventbrite.co.uk. It's not a shortened URL. So you know that when you click in that link, you know where you're going. So there's like an element of trust there already, that you know what you're going to do when you click on this link. So that's the example of the sorts of things that I think that in terms of posting on social media, if you just look to highlight those links ever so slightly, then it can help you with these things. Now, the next example I'm going to share with you is around the preview of the social media. And again, like I said, I found it very hard to think, right, I could go and share someone else's website here, but I don't want to embarrass them, or I don't want to look like I'm having a dig at anybody. So I sacrificed myself basically in all of this. And so this is a link. So I set up a charity in memory of my sister. We have a website, and I've made a page on that website recently, and I haven't done the proper link preview thing yet. And so you can see here, this is a link when I'm sharing it on Facebook, and because the link isn't optimized to social media, which I will explain in a minute what that is and how you can do that, you can see here that what the social media channel is doing is it's pulling through the information from the page. It can't really find a decent image, so it's just pulled out the logo, which is a bit pixelated. The wording in bold, you know, all the wording on it, that's just information that is grabbed from the page and it's just presented in. It doesn't look a particularly nice format. You'll see this a lot. Now, I think now that I've probably highlighted this to you, you will notice this a lot more. So that's how that kind of bad link preview looks on Facebook. And this is how that bad link preview would look on Twitter. So again, it's a bit of a kind of funny half and half logo, but it's not a picture, and the wording, I mean, it says grant application forms. You kind of get you get what that kind of website is about, but it doesn't really do it justice when you compare it to how it could look. So I've chosen one from the QBD website because this is something that I did with our website when it went live 18 months ago. So this is a link on Facebook. Now, again, there's no trickery in this. This is me just sharing the link again. I haven't added that image, but what's happened is because we've set our website up to be shared on social media, and I will explain more about how you do that in a minute, so don't worry. You can see that when you share it through, it pulls through a nice image that is an image that you want to be shown on social media. And it's a nice big image that kind of fills the space. And then underneath it's got that wording, and you can edit that wording. So where it says web design agency and digital marketing, you can change that to whatever wording you want. And we create, we can continue, you could change that as well. And we've done this for clients where it might say, for more information, get in touch, or for more information, click here, or feel free to call us on and put a phone number in. So there's lots of little call to action details that you can put in this. And just to show you for kind of reference notes, this is how it would look on Twitter as well. So you can see it's slightly different. We edited it on Twitter. The image is slightly different. And it says, let's talk. If you need some good, honest advice about your web presence, get in touch. So you can see that, and that whole thing is the link. You compare that to the link that I shared, which was the grant application form, and how different that is. One of the things straight away to note is just how much bigger that is. So if you think of it in terms of real estate on people's news feeds, that's so much bigger as an image that you can grab people's attention. And then if you are being able to use quite an impactful, colourful, engaging, attention-grabbing image as well, then these are the sorts of things that can help, and you can start to use these elements to, when you're sharing links on your website, then this is what you can kind of do. One of the things that will happen usually is if you can't share the link, or when you do share the link and it pulls it through, like the preview of the grant application, you don't really like the image that it's dragged out your website or the wording that it's used, most people will mask it in the sense that they will then just upload an image, and then they will kind of do that bad example that I showed you in the first place, where they'll write what they'll need to write. They won't highlight the link. They'll just put the link at the bottom, and they'll stick some stock image in the post. So if you did include an image with this post, it would go over, or it would replace that link preview. But in our opinion, the link previews are so much more powerful because there's the wording in there, and all of that box that you can see, that is all the links. They only have to click on any of those areas. And so it's just one of those things to really consider, how you can do to really get these things across. And almost, I suppose, a little bit of homework is when you're next on any of these social media channels, if you go through and click some of the, go through and look at some of the images on social media and the links on social media, you'll start to see this. You'll start to see how people have shared a link to a website, and the website's not set up for to be shared on social media properly. So, you know, it's just a kind of half distorted image of their logo that's get pulled through, and a bit of a random bit of wording, a bit like that grant application one that I showed you, or they're masking it because they don't really know how to control this. So those are the things, the big examples of it that we always look to do, particularly when we're sharing our web links on behalf of our clients, is we will share news articles. It's one of the things that works very well. And as well as finding relevant news relevant to your profession and industry, which we try and do a lot of. Another reason why we would share recognized, I use credible news sources. I used to say trusted news sources, but that's a bit of a funny terminology now as well. But recognized websites, big newspaper websites, is because I know when you share that link on social media, their links are going to look brilliant because they're geared up to be shared on social media. So they have optimized that page. So the image that gets pulled through with that link is an image relevant to the topic. And it's usually something quite headline grabbing. The bold headline, which in this example is the let's talk, will be like the headline of the article. And then the bit where it starts, if you need some good, honest advice, that would be maybe some other kind of engaging, possibly veering into clickbait area sometimes, but it will be attention grabbing, and it will be completely set up and completely optimized to be shared on social media. So that's one of the reasons why we do share recognized, established, like these big news sites a lot, because we know then the links are going to look good. And then when you take a look back at your feed, as you kind of scroll through it over the weeks and months, you know, the quality of the content that you're posting on social media is good. So that's one of the things that we look to do. And that's the sort of thing you want to try and do with your own website, is how can you edit these things, and how can you optimize your websites to, so when you share them on social media, or if other people share them on social media, it's set up properly to look like this, basically. So it's all about the meta tags in the image. So what happens is the social media channels will scrape the data. They will quickly go to the website that you've just put in the URL. So you would have known this when you post on social media. You put a URL into the box that you're writing. It will quickly go have a look at that website, and it scrapes the data that it can find. So basically it grabs the first image it can find and the first load of wording that it can find, and it sticks it in the preview. But like I said, you can control that. And what you're able to do is you can edit the page, the date of it, and you can also mask the page if you want. So you can cover this up. I know that a few people on this call today are QBD website owners, so to speak. They're clients of QBD. So this is a tool that we are able, and I'm all happy to talk to for the people who are on who have QBD websites, how we can help you set this up, and we'll point you in the direction of it. We've been able to, with our websites, is set up a way in which you can edit how the preview looks on social media relatively easily. If you don't have that function, I think most websites probably don't. Maybe some of the more like Wix or Squarespace websites possibly do this. But basically what it's pulling through is the first image that it finds on your website, and then the meta description and the page titling. That's basically what gets pulled through. Now, the word of warning here is this is getting quite technical, so just be wary of that. Don't go, if you're not too sure what we're going on about at the moment, if it's gone a bit too far, don't kind of go poking around your website without knowing kind of where to go. We've got the free follow one-to-ones you can book with us, or basically whoever does your website, speak to them and say that you want to start in optimizing how your website looks when it's shared on social media, and you want to look at editing the meta tags and the images that the social media channels find. So those are the sorts of things you want to do. In the email that I'll send tomorrow as a follow-up to this, I will share the 2 links. There's 2 websites that I use for this. They're both owned by the big social media companies. So the examples that I showed you of the bad link and the good link for Twitter, that's actually a page buried within Twitter's website where you can validate. It's called the card that you see, the big link that you see on Twitter account, it's called a card. It's called a Twitter card. So I'll send you the link. It's a complicated one to kind of read out, but I'll put it in the email tomorrow, and basically you can put any website in the world into this link, and then it will show you what the preview would look. It will show you what the preview looks like before you post it. So you can take your own website, you can go to that Twitter page, and then you can start putting in your own links into this search bar and just clicking enter or done or search or something. And then it will show you how your website would look on Twitter if it was shared. And that will probably highlight some of the issues you may have. So I'll put the link in the email tomorrow where you can find that one out. It's called the Twitter Card Validator, if you want to Google it before I send the email out tomorrow morning. The other one, that Facebook do a similar thing, where there's a page within Facebook. I can't remember what that one's called, to be honest, because that is quite a long, funky email URL. But again, it works in the same way. You put a URL into Facebook, and then it scrapes that data, and it comes back with the data that it finds on that page. So it says, okay, here's the stuff that we found. This is how it would look. If you wanted to share this link on Facebook, this is how it would look. So again, you can take your own website URLs and you can share them in there. What works very well that we've seen with this is you can obviously optimize your main pages on your website so they get shared better on social media, and you can include a decent image. And even if you were just to change the page title and the meta descriptions, the negative about that is it would possibly affect your SEO. So that's why having this kind of mask system where you can edit like the date and the date of the page and things, is it doesn't affect your SEO as much. Also, it's easier to do, and you'll probably be more inclined to update it or change how it looks. So one of the things that we would do is, we have a client who writes lots of blogs, and every week, nearly certainly every 2 weeks, we always share a link to their website, which is their blog. Now, we've optimized that page, so when we share that link, it looks good on social media to encourage more people to click on that link and drive people to that blog. However, we're sharing the same link every week, every 2 weeks. If we just kept sharing the same one, it would just keep looking the same. And even though the blog's different, you'd be forgiven for thinking that you've read it before. So what we're able to do with this kind of masking system is we can quickly change the photo and the little bit of wording without changing the page structure or the SEO or any of that stuff. And then when I share that blog the following week, it's the same link, but it looks different. So, and then you can start testing different ways of how you can get people to click into your website. So hopefully that all makes sense. As I said, you're all on silent and I can't really see any of you at the moment. So hopefully that you can get a feel for this sort of thing. I appreciate it might have gone a bit, we might have kind of tripped down a bit of a rabbit hole. It's quite deep talking about meta tags and things. The thing to be aware of is just do a bit of practice. I'll send you the links, like I said, tomorrow. Take a look at how your website looks on social media and think about how you can present those things better. And if you do need some help with optimizing that website and getting those meta tags, you can book a free one-to-one and we will kind of talk through those bits. So like I said, just be aware of how it looks and, try and optimize your website to that. If you really can't get into it, or you've spoken to your current web developer and they're not sure, or they don't have the facilities to do it, fine. We're not having a pop at them or anything. Go back to that initial one where you do just share the link, but you then upload an image, so you're not sharing the link preview instead, but just highlight the link using a little emoji or some dots or an arrow or something or other, rather than just sticking the URL at the bottom, because I just don't think it makes it compelling enough. And I think that's the thing that most people could do a bit better in their social media posts. So there's lots of time for questions for this. But in summary, what I would say is think about how you want to get traffic to your website. So if you're going down the SEO route, great, that's probably the best one. But there would be costs to that unless you're going to do it all yourself. And there is a big time element to it of how the effect that would take. The paid ads one as well is very, very effective, but obviously that is money. There's no getting around it. You would have to spend money doing that. Or there's this kind of social media angle as well. The probably the things that I would recommend you bear in mind if you're looking to maybe make these decisions would be around budget and time. Those are the key factors. So how much money have you got to maybe put into marketing your website, if any? And where would it be best spent? Where would that money be best spent? Again, if you want some advice for that, I'm always happy to share. We're always honest with what we think you should do. We're not out just to kind of get as much money as we can for ourselves. We will recommend the best course of action for the website that you've got and the budgets that you have. So budgets would be the big thing, but also then this time factor of how urgent it is, or how quickly do you want people to visit your website. And like I said, look to optimize your posts. I think that's probably the one you can all definitely do, is look to try and optimize your posts, mix it up a bit, drive people to your website more. But if you can optimize your website, which is what I was talking about with the meta tags, and when the social media channels scrape that data from your website and present it as a preview, if you can look to start doing that sort of stuff, that does make a big difference. And as someone who posts a lot on social media, mainly on behalf of other people, when there is a website which is optimized, it's so much easier to share the links, because I know I could think, right, we're talking about this sort of service, or they've got this blog, or we just want to put a post about how you can contact us. So I can just go and get the contact us URL, put that into Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it be, knowing and confident that the preview that's being pulled through is going to look really nice. It's going to grab people's attention. I can put that little bit of word in, and then away we go. it might feel initially that there's a lot of work going into optimizing each individual page of your website to improve how these pages look and the previews of social media channels. But once it's done, posting on social media will become a lot easier, because then you can just go and grab pages from your website, share those on social media, and all the link stuff is done. So it is a good thing that we'll bear in mind. So a quick reminder, the slides that were shared today will be available as a PDF. And as I said there, if you do want to revisit any of this sort of stuff, the details in the email tomorrow will be in that. You can book a free follow-up one-to-one if you do want to go through some of this more with your own website, or get a little bit of understanding of more of the different things that we covered. Again, we try and be specific on these certain topics, but we realise that there's not enough time to really dig deep into this. So book a follow-up one-to-one if you feel that you need to. Next week's how-to guide as well. It'll be next Wednesday at 2 o'clock. We're doing these every Wednesday at 2. So they're always free to book on. And so look out for those. And as I said, the one that we'll be doing next week will be with Liam, and it is how to get your website ranking higher on Google. And that is more around the initial SEO, so on-page and off-page SEO, and those little things that you'd be able to do to kind of getting your website going in the right direction in terms of how to get it higher on Google.